Three heads, old yang. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. Two tails, one head. Yang yang. Two heads, one tail. Yang yin. 3 heads. Old yang. I'll start by reading a passage from the Book of Balance and Harmony. These essays, conversations, poetry, and songs about the secrets of Taoism teach how to live a centered and orderly life. Secret meanings. To master change, nothing is more important than to know the time. To know the time, nothing is more important than to understand inner design. To understand inner design, nothing is more important than open calm. Images of change. Change that can change is not eternal change. Images that can be imagined are not the great image. Eternal change does not change. The great image is imageless. Eternal change is change before delineation. Changing change is change after delineation. Eternal change, unchanging, is the body of the Absolute. Changeable change is the basis of creation. The great image is the beginning of movement and stillness. That which can be imagined is the mother of form and name. What is ever quiescent is eternal change. That which never ceases is changing change. What is ultimately open and bodiless is the great image. What appears according to events is what can be imagined. There is no way to find out the beginning or determine the end of the eternal. It is what clearly exists uniquely throughout all time. The great outwardly contains heaven and earth, inwardly fills the universe. It is what pervades all worlds, profoundly still and perfectly complete. Because eternal change does not change, it can encompass the endless changes that take place in the world. Because the great image is imageless, it can describe the endless phenomena that occur in the world. Change and image are the basis of the Tao. Eternity and change. Eternal change does not change. Changing change is not eternal. Because the eternal does not change, it can adapt to change. Because the changing is not eternal, it can embody eternity. Never changing is the eternity of change. The transiency of movement and stillness is the change of change. Being invariably independent attains the eternal. Going everywhere indefatigably masters the changing. Without knowing the eternal, one cannot master change. Without mastering change, one cannot know the eternal. Eternity and change are the basis of transformation. Substance and function. Eternity is the substance of change. Change is the function of change. What never changes is the substance of change. What changes with time is the function of change. Freedom from cognition and contrivance is the substance of change. Sensitive adaptation is the function of change. Knowing the function, one can find out the substance. Preserving the substance, one can sharpen the function. Sages gaze above and examine below, search afar and apprehend the near, to realize the substance. Developed people advance in quality, accomplish works, carry out tasks, and create tools based on the function. Investigating truth, fulfilling human nature, taking pleasure in the celestial, knowing the meaning of life, cultivating harmony and peace, and arranging the social order are all within change. Preserving the substance of change is the way to know the eternal. Sharpening the function of change is the way to master adaptation. Movement and stillness. The alternation of the firm and the yielding is the movement and stillness of change. The rise and descent of yin and yang is the movement and stillness of energy. The coming and going of energy is the movement and stillness of things. Rising and retiring by day and night is the movement and stillness of the body. The advancement and retirement of the individual, the arising and disappearing of thoughts, the fortune and misfortune of the world, the success and failure of affairs, all are alternations of movement and stillness. By observing their movement and stillness, the changes of events and the conditions of beings can be seen. When there is attention and stillness, there is perceptivity in action. When there is autonomy in stillness, action can be decisive. When there is certitude in stillness, actions are auspicious. Stillness is the foundation of action. Action is the potential of stillness. When action and stillness are always as they should be, one's path is illumined. Contraction and expansion. The coming and going of heat and cold is the contraction and expansion of a year. The coming and going of the sun and moon is the contraction and expansion of energy. The coming and going of past and present is the contraction and expansion of time. The interdependence of being and non-being, difficulty and ease, long and short, high and low, all are the principle of contraction and expansion if one knows the way of mutual influence of contraction and expansion. Then one can comprehend endless benefits in the world. Waxing and waning. Waxing is the beginning of waning. Waning is the end of waxing. Waxing is the massing of energy. Waning is the dissolution of matter. Growth and development is called waxing. Returning to the root, submitting to destiny, is called waning. Origin and growth are the waxing of change. Fruition and consummation are the waning of change. Spring and summer are the waxing of the year. Autumn and winter are the waning of the year. Youth and maturity are the waxing of the body. Aging and death are the waning of the body. Going from non-being to being is the waxing of things. Going from being to non-being is the waning of things. Waxing is the cohort of life. Waning is the cohort of death. Ever since the first division of positive and negative energies, there has never been a pattern of waning without waxing, and there has never been anything that waxed without waning. Those who realize this are clearly aware of truth. Our hexagram is made up of a bottom or inner trigram. You count it from bottom to top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your next trigram is your top or outer trigram. We have two changing lines. Both of them are old masculine lines. They will transform from our primary hexagram to our secondary or supporting hexagram, from their old masculine to their young opposite. So they will, in the supporting hexagram, be young yin lines. So our first trigram will be read as solid, solid, broken. This is the trigram of dewy, lake or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. Our top or outer trigram in our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, solid, which is the trigram Li, fire and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. As well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Those two trigrams, Li, fire and light, above dewy, lake, or marsh, give us the primary hexagram of 38. Oh, and our upper or top or outer trigram will be read from our primary hexagram as solid, broken. Oh, sorry. I gotta read. We went through Li. Sorry. Our bottom line, our bottom trigram of our supporting hexagram will now be read as broken, solid, broken, which is Kan, water. Kan is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. So our secondary or supporting hexagram, the top trigram or outer trigram will be read as solid, broken, broken, which is the trigram Zen, thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Thunder above water will give us a supporting hexagram of 40. Perfect. And 38. Yep. 38 and 40. We will start by reading from the Taoist I-ming, written in 1796 by a Taoist adept named I-ming. Oh. We will start by reading the short definitions of our primary and supporting hexagrams. 38 has the succinct definition of disharmony. Focus on externals requires inner emptiness to restore harmony. And 40 is liberation. Taking advantage of the appropriate time to liberate positive primordial energy from the influence of negative conditioned energy. So these top two lines. Primary is 38, disharmony. Secondary or supporting is 40, liberation. And our changing lines were 1 and 6. What does all this mean? What it means is that to understand the question we bring to the I-ming when we consult the oracle, well, having the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits and forces shaping this moment of time? The way our answer is revealed is, in our case now, in 3 stages. We will repeat those 3 stages through multiple commentaries. How the parts of your reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The 2 hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel and underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the 2 hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. Primary hexagram 38 from the Taoist I-ming. We will start by reading the text. 38, disharmony. Disharmony, a small matter will turn out all right. Explanation. Disharmony means mutual opposition. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is fire, luminous, below is lake, joyous. Joy arises inside. Illumination is used outside. Rejoicing in what is not to be rejoiced in, bringing to light what is not to be brought to light. Joy and light are not appropriate, so it is called disharmony. This hexagram represents conciliation and adjustment when yin and yang are separated. It follows on the previous hexagram of concealment of illumination. Concealment of illumination has a meaning of true illumination being obscured. Then artificial understanding emerges, discriminating consciousness takes charge of affairs, following what it desires, shedding light on the external without illumining the inward. One's essence is thus disturbed, life is shaken, and one is separated from the Tao. This is where disharmony comes from. However, though disharmony is disharmony, there is still a way to bring about union. Even though the light of consciousness is focused on externals, if one can empty the mind, one can thereby restore light within. Even though desires arise inwardly, if one can fill the belly, one can thereby sweep desires aside. When illumination is restored and desires swept out, the spirit is settled and feelings are forgotten. Then the barrier separating yin and yang is penetrated, and disharmony can be reconciled. Therefore, a small matter will turn out all right. A small matter refers to yin. When the human mentality has been doing things for a long time and the mind of Tao has been buried away, the great matter is already gone. Now, if you want to achieve unification, it is necessary first to dismiss the human mentality. After that, the mind of Tao will arise. Only after the mind of Tao has been restored will a great matter be auspicious. When right in the midst of disharmony, it is sufficient to seek to avoid the human mentality ruining things. How can one dare hope great matters turn out well? This is spoken of in terms of a small matter turning out all right. And our supporting hexagram, 40, liberation or solution. For liberation, the southwest is beneficial. When going nowhere, the return brings good fortune. When going somewhere, promptness brings good fortune. Explanation. Liberation means freeing. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is water, dangerous. When positive energy moves out of danger, action beyond danger moves according to the will, so it is called liberation. This hexagram represents taking advantage of the right time to gather the medicine. It follows on the previous hexagram, disharmony. Disharmony means yin and yang are not in harmony. Delight and attention are not appropriate. Negative energy is in charge of affairs, while positive energy is trapped. So this work of liberating the positive energy is essential. Liberating the positive energy is gathering the medicine. In gathering the medicine, it is important to know the right time. Otherwise, you will fumble and negative energy will remain while positive energy will again slip away. Then even though the medicine be nearby, you cannot avail yourself of it. Understanding reality says, when lead meets winter, hasten to gather it. After the full moon, metal is worthless. When the first yang is born on the ground of earth, thereby producing thunder, the primordial energy comes from within nothingness, and the heart of heaven and earth turns. This is what is called finding companionship in the southwest. Just when lead meets winter and the great medicine appears, when the mind of Tao becomes active and the human mind is still, the spontaneous liberation is the portent of good fortune. Therefore, liberation, the southwest, is beneficial. When going nowhere, the return brings good fortune. Returning without going anywhere does not come about by human effort. It appears spontaneously at a given time and comes from nature. But once nature's time has arrived, human exertion is necessary. One should hasten to set about fostering positive energy and suppressing negative energy. When the celestial and the human act together, one uses the return of this one bit of positive energy to go back to where there is pure positivity without negativity. So the mind of Tao is always present and the human mentality is forever extinguished. Only then is one liberated from danger and difficulty. and able to act freely in any way, just as one wills. This is why, when going somewhere, promptness brings good fortune. If one is prompt, then the medicinal energy has just arisen. When the medicinal energy has just arisen, it belongs to the primordial. When the medicinal energy has just arisen, it belongs to the primordial. If one is tardy, once the medicinal energy has passed, it belongs to the temporal. If you promptly gather the medicinal energy when it has just arisen, then the primordial is stable and you gain good fortune. If you gather it only when the medicinal energy has passed, then temporal conditioning will reassert itself and you will be unfortunate. There is profound meaning in the words, promptness brings good fortune. There is that which requires promptness. That is to say, when you reach the point where the first yang has just become active, you should advance the fire without delay. Our changing lines from Disharmony are, again, changing line 1 and 6. That being changing from old yang to young yin. So red, first of all, as solid, and then they changed to broken, or from yang to yin. So the context of our changing lines to get the most focused part of our reading that takes precedence over all other elements. If we understand their general context, it'll help us frame what we're about to hear. Line 1 has the general context of inklings just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. Line 6 is beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. And I'll just show you this. And if you use this often, you might even just, screenshot that. Super valuable. All right, now. In Hexagram 38, we will read our changing lines 1 and 6 of Hexagram 38 Disharmony. Line 1, regret disappears. When you lose the horse, don't chase it. It will return on its own. Seeing an evil person, there is no blame. Explanation. In the beginning of disharmony, when the mind of Tao has just gone and the human mind has just come, if one can firmly maintain rectitude and not be deluded by the human mentality, the mind of Tao will return of itself. Those with regret can thus be freed from regret. This is like when you lose the horse, don't chase it. It will return on its own. However, one will surely see an evil person without blame. The evil person is the human mentality. The human mentality has 5 thieves: joy, anger, happiness, sadness, lust, that can ruin the path. If one does not see the human mentality, one will not know the calamities caused by the 5 thieves. Seeing the human mind and going along with its desires to gradually introduce guidance, then the 5 thieves cannot extend their wildness. This is how to avoid injury. This is settling disharmony when it has just arisen. And changing line 6. Top yang. Disharmony results in isolation. See a pig covered with mire, a wagon carrying devils. First you draw the bow, later you put the bow down. It is not an enemy, but a partner. Going on, it is fortunate if you encounter rain. Explanation. At the extreme of disharmony, the mind of Tao has been long buried away, and people don't pay attention to it. This is disharmony resulting in isolation. With the mind of Tao buried away, and the human mentality taking charge of affairs, the influence of habit becomes one's nature, and doubts and ruminations come forth by the hundreds. This is being like a pig covered with mire, a wagon full of devils. If you want to restore the mind of Tao, it is necessary to first understand the human mind. But to understand it, it is important to see it. Seeing it as a pig, as devilish, is truly seeing the human mentality and how injurious it is. Once you can see and understand it clearly, your former use of the human mind without understanding is like first drawing a bow, while your later ability to understand and restore the mind of Tao is like afterward putting the bow down. Without the human mind, you don't see the mind of Tao. Without the mind of Tao, you cannot know the human mind. Using the human mind temporarily to restore the mind of Tao, even though the human mind is the chief of villains, it is also the chief in merit. It is not an enemy, but really a partner. Once the human mind is seen and the mind of Tao is restored, at this point, if you empty the human mind and activate the mind of Tao and go on to solve disharmony, then yin and yang combine harmoniously. It is like encountering rain, which washes away the filth of all the pollution of the past, so one is restored to original wholeness and soundness. What can compare to that fortune? This is taking advantage of the time to solve disharmony, inasmuch as disharmony must ultimately be reconciled. In each of the 6 lines there is disharmony, and the path of reconciliation is only capable of escaping disharmony between yin and yang, not of balancing yin and yang. Therefore it says a small affair will turn out all right. But if a small affair can turn out well, then a great affair can turn out well. When disharmony is finally reconciled and yin and yang commune, if you seek from here, a great affair will surely bring good fortune. So practitioners of the Tao should first seek good results in the small affair. That was from the text. We will now read from the commentary, keeping in mind that those were changing lines. In the commentary section, there are no changing lines. So that changing line 1 and 6 that we just read are going to still be our most focused part of our reading. Don't get confused. We will read after this commentary section some stuff from James Dekorne, which I've linked in the description. I'd recommend checking out his site. He synthesizes a bunch of commentaries, so you can see from other books what they would define or translate the I Ching to. So you can cross-reference, it's really handy. And then he also gives editor's notes, which I find to be very valuable. He's practiced the I Ching for who knows how long, and he gives really, really great advice and also often really great quotes. So we'll go from here to there, and then we'll wrap it up with Hilary Barrett. At some point I'm going to put things in the video to jump ahead exactly to those parts. I should figure that out. 38, disparity is what it's called in the commentary. Fire above, lake below. Above is fire, below is a lake, disparate. Thus are superior people the same yet different. Disparity means disjunction between one and another. Above is fire, below is lake. The nature of fire is to flame upward, while the nature of water is to flow downward. When the fire is above, it cannot warm the water, and when the water is below, it cannot extinguish the fire. Thus, though the fire and the lake water are in the same place, their natures are different. This is the image of disparity. What superior people see in this is that practitioners of the Tao should not fail to assimilate to others, yet should not be too much like others either. If they do not assimilate, they will startle and amaze the ignorant and ordinary people and will be disliked and suspected by others. If they become too similar, however, they will be caught up in their influence and fall into mundane feelings. Therefore, they are different in the midst of sameness. Emulating the way moisture permeates things, they merge with the ordinary world and harmonize their illumination, responding to people harmoniously, able to adapt without restriction, assimilating to everyone. Emulating the way fire lights things up, they clearly distinguish truth and falsity, dealing with people without confusion, inwardly autonomous, having extraordinary self-control. Outwardly the same, yet inwardly not the same. Inwardly different, yet outwardly not different. They are thus able to be very much like other people, while at the same time very much different from other people. Outward sameness means going by worldly laws. Inward difference is practicing the principles of the Tao. This is what is meant by the saying, in cultivating practice, one conforms and harmonizes, adapting to each individual situation as it is. Nobody can fathom such changes, or see how one acts or lies hidden. And our supporting hexagram 40, dissolution. Thunder above, water below. Thunder and rain act, dissolving. Thus do superior people forgive faults and pardon crimes. Dissolution means shedding, dispersing. Above is thunder, below is water. Thunder rolls, rain falls. Thunder and rain both act, and the celestial and earthly energies commune. This is the image of dissolution. What superior people see in this is that when the force of mundanity is congealed and stagnant, practitioners of the Tao should use intense effort to burn it away. Then when the celestial energy has returned, they should use gentle effort to nurture it. Each phase has its proper time, which does not allow deviation or delay. Therefore, after the force of mundanity has been dissolved, they forgive faults and pardon crimes, going along naturally to cause it to evaporate and disappear of itself, not allowing any force. People have faults and commit crimes because of obeying acquired conditioning, which obscures the primal. Indulging emotions and giving free rein to cravings, they will go to any lengths. This is why there needs to be effort to attain self-mastery and self-control. Mastery and control means correcting faults and eliminating misdeeds, using energy to transform the temperament. When the temperament has been sublimated, the primordial comes back. With the mind of Tao always present, the human mentality does not arise. Once faults and wrongdoings are eliminated, there's no more need to work on mastery and control. To forgive means to forgive past faults. To pardon means to pardon past deeds, misdeeds. Forgiving and pardoning, sane energy grows strong, and aberrant energy spontaneously disappears. The real remains and the false does not come. Otherwise, if one does not know when to stop at sufficiency and still keeps thinking about misdeeds and faults, after all this is doing things with the human mentality, which again calls on faults and errors after they had been eliminated. What had been dissolved now does not dissolve. The danger of mundanity still remains, and celestial energy is not pure. This is what is meant by the saying, to try to eliminate errant thoughts doubles the affliction. To aim for reality as it is also is a mistake. All right. As promised, James Dekorne. I'm not going to read everything from here, just the things that stand out that I think might be incredibly helpful. Hexagram 38, he calls mutual alienation. Other titles might be opposition, the symbol of strangeness and disunion, the estranged, opposites, polarizing, alienated, distant from, perversion, disharmony, separated, contradiction, estrangement, incongruity, judgment, leg. Despite mutual alienation, there will be success in small matters. Blowfold, the estranged, good fortune in small matters. Ritsima/Karcher, polarizing, small affairs significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of things that are connected but should not join. It emphasizes that putting things in opposition while acknowledging their essential link is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg. The image of fire over a marsh forms mutual alienation. The superior man, in accordance with this, accepts the diversities which make up the whole. Wilhelm/Baines, above fire, below the lake, the image of opposition. Thus, amid all fellowship, the superior man retains his individuality. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes fire above and a marshy lake below. The superior man achieves difference through unity. Lu, fire above the lake symbolizes opposition. Living with the people, the superior man distinguishes among them. Ritsima/Karcher, fire above, marsh below, polarizing. A Chunsu, or chief son, or superior person, uses concording and also dividing. Cf. Solve et coagula. -ed. Wu, fire above and marsh below form incongruity. Thus the Junzi, or chief son, or superior person, takes separate paths but arrive at the same goal. Or one can say the sage, at chief son, superior person. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. In mutual alienation, we see fire ascending and water descending. We see two sisters living together whose wills move in opposite directions. However, the lower trigram of cheerfulness is attached to the upper trigram of clarity, and the magnetic fifth line is responded to by the dynamic second line. These are signs that there can still be good fortune in small matters. Heaven and earth are separate and apart, but the work which they do is the same. Male and female are separate and apart, but with a common will they seek the same object. There is a diversity between the myriad classes of beings, but there is an analogy between their several operations. Great indeed are the phenomena and the results of this condition of disunion and separation. Leg. Mutual alienation shows a condition in which disunion and mistrust prevail. The hexagram teaches how this state of affairs may be overcome in small matters and the way prepared for the cure of the whole system. The commentators suggest that the condition symbolized here is a necessary sequel to the regulation of the family in the preceding hexagram. The Kangxi editors observe that in many hexagrams we have two daughters dwelling together, but that only in this and number 49 is attention called to it. The reason is that in these two hex diagrams, the sisters are the second and third daughters, while in the others, one of them is the eldest, whose place and superiority are fixed, so that between her and the either of the others, there can be no division or collision. The lesson in the Confucian commentary is not unity and diversity, but union with diversity. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. In resolving disputes, begin with their least controversial aspects. The superior man respects alternative points of view. Turn the hexagram of family upside down, and you get the hexagram of mutual alienation. The opposite of family unity is estrangement, which, combined with the idea of polarity, suggests the kind of energetic pushing away one feels when two horseshoe magnets are matched to the same poles. Despite this opposition, however, every line deals positively with the situation. There's not one image in the hexagram that doesn't intimate an eventual resolution. The 38th hexagram lays even more emphasis than usual on the relationships, polarities existing between its correlate lines. This suggests that interconnections outrank any superficial estrangement. The mutual alienation, then, is not a permanent condition. It represents more of a challenge than a disaster. All polarity is potential energy to accomplish useful work, and in this hexagram, the polarities are more than usually available for this purpose. This doesn't mean that the work here is necessarily easy, just that it offers a major opportunity for growth. A quote from R.P. Cluft in Hypnotherapeutic Crisis Intervention in Multiple Personality. A crisis develops when some pressure or event creates a state of uncomfortable disequilibrium which fails to respond to usual defenses and coping mechanisms. It involves danger with both a considerable risk for worsening and opportunity for growth, with enhancement of insight, mastery, and self-esteem. The patient should be educated to understand his situation and help to see that painful episodes may prove to be part of a constructive process and are not proof of a dire outcome. Hexagram 40, Liberation. Other titles might be Deliverance, the symbol of loosening, release, eliminating obstacles, taking apart, untangled, solution, dissolution, relief, unloose, release of tension. Judgment, leg, liberation finds advantage in the southwest. When the operation is completed, a return to stability brings good fortune. If operations are incomplete, it is best to finish them quickly. Wilhelm/Baines, deliverance. The southwest furthers. If there is no longer anything where one has to go, return brings good fortune. If there is still something where one has to go, hastening brings good fortune. Blowfold, release. The west and south are favorable. Those with nothing to gain from going forward will find good fortune by turning back. Those who do have much to gain from going forward must hasten to be sure of doing well. This is not a time to stay where you are. Stay where we are. If we have no good reason to advance, it is best to retreat. Lu, liberation. The southwest benefits. If there is nothing for one where one has to go, then returning brings good fortune. If there is something in a place where one can go, then going quickly leads to good fortune. Richlema/Karcher, taking apart, harvesting, western south. Without a place to go, one's coming returns significant. Possessing directed going, daybreak significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of reflection and release from tension. It emphasizes that analyzing and understanding things in order to be delivered from compulsion is the adequate way to handle it. Slofnacy, untangled. Beneficial to the southwest, there is nowhere to go. His coming in return is auspicious. There is some place to go to spend the night, auspicious. Wu, relief indicates an advantage in the southwest. If he undertakes to do something without a cause, it will be auspicious for him to return to his former station. If he undertakes to do something with a cause, it will be auspicious for him to do it early. The image. Leg. Liberation shows a thunderstorm clearing the atmosphere. The superior man, in accordance with this, forgives errors and deals gently with crimes. Wilhelm/Baines. Thunder and rain set in, the image of deliverance. Thus the superior man pardons mistakes and forgives misdeeds. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes thunder and rain, bringing release. The superior man tends to forgive wrongs and deals leniently with crimes. The component trigrams suggest that a certain amount of forceful action is required. Ritsuma/Karcher. Thunder, rain, arousing, taking apart. A chunsu uses forgiving excess to pardon offenses. Cleary. Thunder and rain, solution. Wu. There come thunder and rain, this is relief. Thus the junsi, or chief son, or superior person, pardons inadvertent transgressors and extenuates criminal offenders. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Liberation shows the trigram of movement above the trigram of danger. Through movement there is an escape from peril. An early movement to the southwest wins the allegiance of the masses and returns the state to normalcy and equilibrium. When heaven and earth are freed from the grasp of winter, we have thunder and rain. When these come, the buds of the fruit-producing vegetation begin to open. Great indeed are the phenomena in the time of liberation. Leg. The written Chinese character for liberation is the symbol of unloosing, untying a knot, or unraveling a complication. This hexagram denotes a condition in which the obstruction and difficulty of the preceding figure have been removed. The lesson is how this new and better state of the kingdom should be dealt with. If no tasks remain to be completed, the sooner things resume their normal course, the better. If further operations are necessary, let them be accomplished without delay. The Konghasi editors say that moving to the south and west is the same as returning to normality. Thunder and rain clear the atmosphere, and a feeling of oppression is relieved. The images of springtime in the Confucian commentary refer to the gentle policy of a conquering ruler who forgives the opposition of those who cease to offer resistance. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Do what obviously needs to be done and return to stability as soon as possible. The superior man forgives, forgets, and bears no grudges, i.e., stability is more important than fixing blame or haggling over who is right. If the 39th hexagram of impasse is turned upside down, it becomes the 40th hexagram of liberation or deliverance. The two figures represent opposite situations. If impasse creates tension, then liberation releases it. The upper trigram of movement ascends to escape from the lower trigram of danger, giving us an unambiguous image of freedom and relief. And a quote from H. Jonas from The Gnostic Religion: apart from all personification, the whole of space in which life finds itself has a malevolently spiritual character, and the demons themselves are as much spatial realms as they are persons. To overcome them is the same thing as to pass through them, and in breaking through their boundaries, this passage at the same time breaks their power and achieves the liberation from the magic of their sphere. Leg's commentary in the preceding hexagram explains that the southwest is the direction of earth, the fertile lowland where life is natural and uncontrived. Confucius tells us here that an early move in this direction will win the allegiance of the masses. Psychologically interpreted, this refers to the inner kingdom of the psyche, where the masses are the drives, emotions, and archetypal complexes which make up our being. The symbolism suggests a conscious freeing up of inner tension. And a quote from Roberto Asciugoli from Psychosynthesis: These forces, therefore, must not be left to run wild, but should be disposed of in harmless ways, or better still, used for constructive purposes. Creative activities of various kinds, the rebuilding of our personality, contributing to our psychosynthesis. Now back to hexagram 38, our primary hexagram to read our changing lines. And this one again was called mutual alienation. And once again, how our changing lines are to be understood, in what context at least, is that changing line 1 is inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. And line 6 is beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. This is the most focused part of our reading again, just from a different commentary or series of commentaries. And James Dekorne, a practitioner of the Tao, I would call him, he gives editor's notes as well. Here we go, line 1 on our primary hexagram 38, Disharmony. Leg. The first line dynamic shows that to its subject, occasion for repentance will disappear. He has lost his horses, but let him not seek for them. They will return of themselves. Should he meet with bad men, he will not err in communicating with them. Wilhelm/Baines. Remorse disappears. If you lose your horse, do not run after it. It will come back of its own accord. When you see evil people, guard yourself against mistakes. Cleary. Regret vanishes. Having lost the horse, do not chase after it. It will come back by itself. Seeing evil people, there is no blame. Whenever thoughts of gain and loss become serious, or the idea of good and bad is too defined, then what is the same will be differentiated, and what is different cannot be made the same. Only when we follow firm and upright celestial virtue do gain and loss disappear. Good and bad merge. Then, even if we are in a time of oppositions, we can be free of regret. Wu. There will be no regret. He need not look for a lost horse, as it will come back by itself. If he meets with a disagreeable man, there will be no error. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. He communicates with the bad men to avoid the evil of their condemnation. Wilhelm/Baines. When you see evil people, avoid mistakes. Blowfold. That is to say, his very purpose in receiving them is to avoid error. We must expect to encounter unlikable people whom it would be impolitic or dangerous to ignore. Ritzema/Karcher. Using casting out fault indeed. Cleary. Seeing evil people, one avoids blame. Wu. He meets with a disagreeable man to avoid getting into troubles. Leg. The first line is dynamic in a dynamic place, but his correlate in line 4 is also dynamic, so disappointment and repentance are likely to ensue. However, through the good services of line 4, the first line won't have to repent. His condition may be symbolized by a traveler's loss of his horses, which return to him of themselves. Notes and paraphrases. Su. At the outset, the man slips into avoidable mistakes during times of opposition. When members of his own fold are estranged, he should not run after them. He should let them come back of their own accord. On the other hand, those who do not belong to this group, but force their evil presence into the company, must be endured. This silences their slanderous tongues. They will withdraw of their own accord. Wing. There is an estrangement present between elements that naturally belong together. Do not try to reunify the situation with force. Allow things to return to a state of accord naturally, as they will. Do not worry about it. Things will work themselves out. If something inferior is being forced upon you, a cold shoulder will work wonders. Editor. Psychologically, to lose one's horses is to lose one's power, or to have emotion run away with itself. The image suggests a temporary loss which one need not worry about. To communicate with bad men means to consciously monitor your negative feelings. to be aware of resentments, fears, hostility, or whatever the situation has called for without acting on them. In other words, maintain your will in the face of unstable impulses. The unusual beneficial correlation between two dynamic lines in 1 and 4 recalls a similar configuration in hexagram number 55. It's a quote from E.C. Whitmont, The Symbolic Quest. Analytic experience has shown that there seems to be a general law which decides between psychic health and psychopathology. The balance is tipped by the ego's strength, capacity and willingness to unbar the doors and windows to the unconscious and to receive the stranger, that is, to confront the channel the inner world of images and effects while at the same time retaining its own grasp upon external reality. He breaks changing line 1 down into A and B as possible succinct definitions. A. Temporary conflict will soon resolve itself. Endure the inferior elements in the situation without polarizing them to action. B. For the moment, your emotions have run away with you. Confront a harmful or severely limiting attitude or belief. And then our changing line 6. Leg, the 6th line dynamic shows its subject solitary amidst the prevailing disunion. In the subject of the 3rd line, he seems to see a pig bearing on its back a load of mud, or fancies there is a carriage full of ghosts. He first bends his bow against her, and afterwards unbends it. For he discovers that she is not an assailant to injure, but a near relative. Going forward, he shall meet with the genial rain, and there will be good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines. Isolated through opposition, one sees one's companion as a pig covered with dirt, as a wagon full of devils. First one draws a bow against him, then one lays the bow aside. He is not a robber. He will woo at the right time. As one goes, rain falls, then good fortune comes. Blowfold. Wandering, estranged, and lonely, he saw a boar covered with mud and a wagon loaded with demons. First he stretched his bow, but then put it aside. It is not an obstacle, but a matter of betrothal which causes delay or hesitation. If rain is encountered during the conduct of affairs, good fortune will ensue. The first 2 sentences imply that we shall meet with unpleasant and frightening things, that at first we shall think to fend them off, but then decide to let them be. The sentence about betrothal means only that there will be some delay or hesitation for very good reasons. The last sentence may or may not mean exactly what it says. If we decide that it is not to be taken literally, then we must take it to mean that a slight setback on the way is a good omen. Lu, isolated due to opposition. One sees a dirty pig by the roadside and many devils in a cart. First he draws his bow against him, then he puts it down. He is not a robber. He will propose marriage. If he meets the rainfall, there will be good fortune. Richima/Karcher, polarizing alone, visualizing pigs bearing mire, carrying souls, the one chariot. Beforehand, stretching's bow. Afterwards, stimulating's bow. In no way outlawry. Matrimonial allying. Going meeting rain, by consequence, significant. Slothnacy, perverse solitude, seeing a pig with mud on its back and one cart carrying ghosts. The first drawn bow is later released into the jar. It is not robbers who in the evening have intercourse. Going and meeting rain, then it will be auspicious. Cleary, 1. Disharmony results in isolation. See a pig covered with mire, a wagon carrying devils. First you draw the bow, later you put the bow down. It is not an enemy, but a partner. Going on, it is fortunate if you encounter rain. Cleary, 2. Encountering rain, then there is good fortune. Wu, he is isolated because of incongruity. He sees a pig hoarding mud on its back and a cart loaded with ghosts. At first he draws his bow, but soon after laying it down, he realizes what he sees is not a transgressor, but a suitor. It will be auspicious if he goes ahead and encounters rain. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. The good fortune of the rain symbolizes the passing away of all doubts. Wilhelm/Baines. All doubts disappear. Blowfold. The last sentence implies the dispersal of all doubt. Coupling this commentary with what is said about rain, we may suppose that if rain or an unexpected setback occurs, then we shall no longer have any reason to doubt the successful outcome of our plans. Ritzema/Karcher. The flock doubt extinguished indeed. Cleary. 2. Doubts disappear. Wu. The dissolution of all doubts. Leg. Line 6 is a magnetic place, yet this line is dynamic. What can he do? He looks at the magnetic 3, his proper correlate, with the mistrustful eye of disunion. The third line appears no better than a filthy pig, no more real than an impossible carriage load of ghosts. He bends his bow, then unbends it when he discovers that 3 is his friend, as did 1 and 4 and 5 and 2. He acts with good luck, comparable to the falling rain which results from the happy union of the yang and yin in nature. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man misjudges his friend unfairly because of misunderstandings, but he realizes his mistake and relieves the tension. Wing. Misunderstandings and mistrust have caused you to lose all perspective. You see your true friends as enemies and become defensive. You will, however, see your mistakes and the tensions will be relieved. Just when contradictions are at their worst, they begin to ebb. Good fortune. Editor. The image is quite clear. Through misperception, one initially rejects something valuable, which appears to be either repugnant or fantastic. Psychologically, this suggests the idea of projection, the assignment of our own unconscious material to external phenomena. To go forward to meet the rain is to make the proper connection, to unite with the truth. In the I Ching, rain always means the union between heaven and earth, above and below, self and ego, thought and feeling, etc. The supreme union is a holy marriage, as described in Hexagram number 11. Here it simply refers to making a connection, getting the message. A quote from M.E. Harding in Psychic Energy. These psychic elements lying behind the ego in the individual's unconscious are projected. That is, they are reflected or mirrored externally in persons and things and situations, which therefore acquire for him a significance and power of attraction borrowed from the unknown aspects of his own psyche. He breaks changing line 6 down into A and B as possible succinct definitions. A. What you perceive as evil circumstances will in time reveal themselves as fortunate. B. Disparate elements in the psyche are about to come together. You perceive disunion where none exists. Now to turn to Hilary Barrett's commentary called Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. I find hers to be sometimes incredibly profound and succinct, with really great questions at the beginning of each hexagram. And quite practical often. Hexagram 38, opposing. Key questions. What if the difference were not a threat? How could this tension be creative? If you can't see eye to eye, what can you see? Oracle, opposing. Small affairs, good fortune. Opposing describes irreducible differences, desires, motivations, and especially ways of seeing that diverge from one another. Opposing people see differently even when they're looking at the same scene. They are utterly strange to each other, as if they came from different planets. With an inner state of opposing, you contain mutually contradictory impulses, like two siblings under one roof, or see from two angles at once. You might see things not only for what they are, but also for what they mean, as if they were omens. In small affairs, this kind of difference of view means good fortune. It's a challenge, a source of comedy, or a creative stimulus. In matters of great personal importance, though, where people's sense of identity is threatened by a different way of seeing, it will stir up survival instincts and trigger conflict. If you can scale matters down to small affairs, it becomes much easier to give space to both visions. Image. Fire above, lake below, opposing. A noble one both harmonizes and separates. The elements of this situation are fire and water. You can't blend them together into a compromise, but kept safely apart, they create harmony. The sun sparkles on the lake. The light of awareness shines on the inner currents of emotion. A noble one lives with opposition, simply by understanding what harmonizes and what is to be held apart. Sequence. Opposing follows from Hexagram 37, people in the home. When the way of the home is exhausted, you naturally turn away, and so opposing follows. There comes a point when you can no longer find yourself as part of a group. You want to assert your separate identity or explore something new outside the safe and familiar walls. And hexagram 40 is release. Key questions. If nothing could bind you, where would you go? Do you have to? Who says? Which path leads to where you want to be? Oracle. Release, fruitful in the southwest, with no place to go. To turn round and come back is good fortune. With a direction to go, daybreak, good fortune. To release is to liberate, to solve problems, to untie knots. The first step towards release is a move southwest. No longer battling on to pursue the mission, but going back to your roots and reconnecting with home and allies. When you know where you're coming from, it becomes a lot easier to be clear about where you're going. If your path has no real destination, turn back. If it has purpose, start your journey as early as you can. If you have no good reason to continue on as before, come back to your starting point and let that cycle reach its end. If you have a goal in mind, why not start exploring ways to attain it right away? This would be such simple advice if only we didn't spend our lives being pulled down paths that lead nowhere, as if by invisible strings. Image. Thunder and rain do their work, release. A noble one pardons transgressions and forgives crimes. Imagine the air after a thunderstorm, clean, clear, all the tension released. Humans do the work of thunder and rain through forgiveness. Just as in the trigrams, thunder comes forth from an inner trigram representing rain and flowing water, so action can spring from fluidity rather than from a rigid stance. Think of a master of Tai Chi in motion or a springing cat. Forgiveness frees us from the bonds of inevitability. A line crossed need not mean there must be retribution. Punishment doesn't have to follow from crime. It's rare that we're truly forced to respond in a certain way, or obliged to make up for our own past mistakes or omissions. Sequence. Release follows from hexagram 39, limping. Things cannot end with hardship, and so release follows. Release means letting things take their time. There comes a time when there has been enough struggle. Release means ending the battle with the world and starting to reconnect with its natural flow. And changing line 1 and 6 of our primary hexagram 38, she calls opposing. Line 1 has the general context of inklings, just beginning to sense what could be involved or needed. And line 6, that was line 1, this is line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Hexagram 38, opposing, changing line 1. Regrets vanish. Lost horse, don't pursue it. It returns of itself. See hateful people, no mistake. This is the first encounter with opposition, inner or outer. Your horse runs away from you, and the horse represents something immensely precious, sometimes your own strength to move forward confidently and with purpose. People appear hateful, as if they were the horse thieves. How are you to respond to this? Are there actions to be taken, commitments to be made? Your first impulse might be to mourn the loss, hate the people, and go running after the horse to drag it back to its stable. But you can't catch a fleeing horse like this. You'll only frighten it further away. If you let it, the horse will eventually return on its own, and regrets will vanish. As for the hateful or hate-filled people, there is no mistake if you only see them. There's no need to react at all. Changing line 6. Opposed, alone. Seeing pigs covered in muck. The chariot loaded with devils. At first drawing the bow, then relaxing the bow. Not robbers at all, but matrimonial allies. Going on meets the rain, and so there is good fortune. Isolated and alone as an orphan, you are acutely aware of how easily you could be hurt. You see nightmare visions. Everything seems to be just another omen of ugliness and fear. There is an all-consuming mistrust. You draw your bow to defend yourself against all comers. But then you look again and relax the bow, recognizing that what seemed to be coming to steal from you actually comes to bless and enrich you. Now on your journey, you meet rain, releasing tension and promising good crops. What is different is not necessarily your enemy. It could be your partner. Opposition becomes the source of expansion, fertility, and growth. The home is enriched as its boundaries are redrawn. We'll draw a card to read a chapter from the Tao Te Ching. Apparently 75 was flipped upside down already. But we'll also flip one more at least. Chapter 75, 72, and 14. In the Tao Te Ching, translated by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Chapter 75. Why are the people starving? Because the rulers eat up the money in taxes. Therefore, the people are starving. Why are the people rebellious? Because the rulers interfere too much. Therefore, they are rebellious. Why did the people think so little of death? Because the rulers demand too much of life. Therefore, the people take death lightly. Having little to live on, one knows better than to value life too much. 72. When men lack a sense of awe, there will be disaster. Do not intrude in their homes. Do not harass them at work. If you do not interfere, they will not weary of you. Therefore the sage knows himself but makes no show, has self-respect but is not arrogant. He lets go of that and chooses this. In chapter 14, look, it cannot be seen, it is beyond form. Listen, it cannot be heard, it is beyond sound. Grasp, it cannot be held, it is intangible. These three are indefinable. Therefore, they are joined in one. From above, it is not bright. From below, it is not dark. An unbroken thread beyond description. It returns to nothingness. The form of the formless. The image of the imageless. It is called indefinable and beyond imagination. Stand before it and there is no beginning. Follow it and there is no end. Stay with the ancient Tao. Move with the present. Knowing the ancient beginning is the essence of the Tao.